The doctor did not look at her when he said it. Your son will never hear your voice. The room felt silent, but for her it was louder than thunder. Her fingers trembled around the tiny blue blanket wrapped around her newborn baby. She waited for someone to correct this sentence, to laugh and say it was a mistake, but no one did. Machines blinked, nurses moved softly, and her world collapsed without a sound. She whispered his name, Adam, though he could not hear it. Tears rolled down her cheeks and fell onto his peaceful face. She promised him in that moment that silence would never define his life. Days turned into weeks and weeks into years, and Adam grew in a world without sound. He watched lips carefully. He studied faces like books. He learned the meaning of smiles, frowns, anger, love, without ever hearing a word. Other children reacted to lullabies, to the barking of dogs, to the clap of thunder. But Adam reacted only to light and vibration. His mother, Sarah, became his bridge to the world. She learned sign language before she learned how to heal her own heartbreak. She spent nights reading about deaf culture, watching videos, practicing signs in front of the mirror until her hands ached. She refused to let pity enter their home. People would tilt their heads and say, "I am sorry," and she would nod politely. But inside she burned with determination. Adam was not broken, he was different, and different did not mean less. When he was 3, she noticed something unusual. He would sit by the window every afternoon, staring at the trees outside. As wind moved through the branches, his small fingers would tap gently on the glass, as if he felt something invisible. Sarah thought maybe he simply liked the movement of leaves. But one day, a truck roared down the street, shaking the ground slightly, and Adam suddenly turned his head, eyes wide, not toward the truck, but toward her. He smiled in a way she had never seen before. Curious, alert, connected, she froze, her heart racing. Could he feel it? Was it coincidence? She began experimenting, gently dropping a book on the floor, watching his reaction. Sometimes he noticed the vibrations, sometimes he did not. Months passed, and hope became a fragile flame. She was afraid to believe too much. Doctors had been clear: profound hearing loss, permanent, complete, but a mother's intuition is louder than any diagnosis. Adam turned 5, and on his birthday, Sarah bought a small balloon filled with helium, bright red, shining in the sunlight. She tied it to his wrist, and as it floated above him, he laughed silently, watching it dance. Then she did something she had never done before. She played music loudly through the old speakers in the living room. She knew he could not hear it. She had accepted that long ago, but as the bass filled the air, the floor vibrated slightly. Adam stopped laughing. His eyes shifted slowly. He looked down at his feet, then at the balloon above him, and then something happened that stole the air from her lungs. He began to move, not randomly, not by accident, but rhythmically, his small body swaying gently as if following a pattern. Sarah covered her mouth, tears flooding her eyes. This was not coincidence. This was not imagination. He was feeling the vibration, translating it into movement, into something beautiful. She turned the volume higher, heart pounding. Adam giggled silently and began spinning the balloon string, twisting around his fingers, perfectly timed with the beat. She collapsed onto the couch, overwhelmed by a miracle she had never dared to expect. Her son was not hearing music, but he was experiencing it through vibration, through sensation, through the language of touch. That day changed everything. She researched vibration therapy, tactile sound systems, dance programs for deaf children. She found stories of performers who felt music through their feet and bones. She showed Adam how to place his hands on speakers, how to feel the pulse of drums through wooden floors, and he absorbed it like sunlight. At 6, he started attending a special arts program where instructors used lights and floor vibrations to teach rhythm. Other parents watched in awe as Adam mastered patterns faster than many hearing children, his eyes sharp, his body intuitive. He communicated through motion, through expression, through a grace that silenced every doubt anyone ever had. Sarah would sit in the back of the room, remembering the doctor's words, "Your son will never hear your voice," and she would smile because she realized something powerful. Hearing was not the only way to listen. Adam was listening to the world in a way few people ever could, through subtle shifts, through tremors, through energy he sensed. Approaching footsteps by vibration, he sensed emotion. By facial tension, he sensed love by the warmth of a hug one evening when he was 8. Sarah sat beside him on the wooden floor. She placed his small hand over her heart and signed, "I love you." He watched her carefully, then placed her hand over his own heart and smiled, and though no sound passed between them, she felt something louder than any spoken word. She felt connection. She felt understanding. She felt pride years later during a school performance. The stage lights dimmed and a deep bass filled the auditorium. Parents leaned forward, whispering among themselves. Sarah sat frozen, hands clasped as Adam walked confidently to the center of the stage, barefoot. Feeling the vibrations through the polished wood, the music began, powerful, intense. And Adam began to dance, every movement, precise, every spin aligned with rhythm. He could not hear but could feel the audience gasped, some wiping tears from their faces, because what they were witnessing was not just a performance, it was resilience. It was adaptation. It was a boy who had been told he would live in silence, proving that silence could still hold music. When the performance ended, the applause thundered through the hall. And though Adam could not hear the clapping, he felt the vibrations. Under his feet, he looked into the crowd, searching until his eyes found his mother. She was standing crying, hands trembling with pride. And in that moment, she saw something she never expected. Not a cure, not a sudden restoration of hearing, but something far greater. She saw her son thriving, not despite his deafness, but because of the unique way it shaped his perception of the world. She realized she had once prayed for him to be normal, but now she prayed only that he would remain exactly who he is. Was strong, intuitive, unstoppable the diagnosis that once shattered her? Had unknowingly built a path toward a different kind of brilliance, and as Adam bowed to the crowd, smiling beneath the bright lights, Sarah understood that sometimes the miracle is not in changing what was feared, but in discovering the beauty hidden within it. Fame was not something Sarah ever imagined for her son, but after that night, the video of Adam's performance spread beyond the school auditorium. Someone in the audience had recorded it and uploaded it online, and within days, thousands of people were watching a boy who could not hear moving perfectly with music. He could only feel comments flooded in, strangers calling him inspiring, extraordinary, gifted. Sarah felt proud but also protective. She did not want the world to reduce her son to a miracle story. He was a child who loved comic books, chocolate ice cream, and building towers from wooden blocks. Yet invitations began arriving. Local art centers, television, interviews, community festivals, all asking for Adam to perform. At first, she hesitated, worried about pressure, worried about disappointment, but Adam surprised her again when she showed him the messages in sign language. His eyes lit up, not because of attention, but because of opportunity. He signed, "I want to feel bigger." Stages, and that sentence alone told her he was ready. The first large event was in a city theater much bigger than his school auditorium. The stage floor was thicker, the speakers stronger, the bass deeper. When Adam stepped barefoot onto that platform, he closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the tremor beneath him as technicians tested sound. He smiled, and Sarah realized he was mapping the vibration, memorizing its texture. The show began. Lights flashed, colors pulsed in sync with rhythm, and Adam moved with a confidence that silenced the crowded hall. His body no longer hesitant, but commanding, each step grounded in sensation, each jump aligned with invisible waves traveling through wood and air. After the performance, a renowned choreographer approached Sarah, introducing himself as Daniel Reyes, a man known for pushing artistic boundaries. He signed slowly, learning as he spoke that he had never seen someone interpret vibration with such purity. He offered Adam a place in his experimental dance workshop where performers explored movement beyond traditional hearing-based timing. Sarah felt fear again. This was no longer a school hobby. This was becoming a path, but she looked at her son who was signing, excitedly, hands flying, eyes shining. And she nodded. The workshop changed everything. Daniel did not treat Adam as fragile. He challenged him, asking him to create choreography based solely on vibration patterns without visual cues. He placed subwoofers beneath the floor, and sometimes removed all lighting, forcing Adam to trust sensation alone at first. Adam stumbled, unsure when deprived of flashing lights, but gradually something extraordinary happened. He began anticipating rhythm. Shifts, not just reacting to them, he felt subtle. Frequency changes through his spine, through the soles of his feet, through the air brushing his skin. Oh. Daniel watched, astonished, telling Sarah that many hearing dancers relied too. Heavily on counting beats, while Adam relied on instinct, on physical resonance. He was not copying music, he was translating it months past, and Adam's name slowly entered conversations in artistic circles. Interviews highlighted his journey, but what fascinated professionals was not his deafness. It was his interpretation. His style, raw, grounded, fluid, like wind shaped by unseen currents during one rehearsal. Daniel introduced live drums instead of recorded bass. The vibrations were less predictable, more organic. Adam hesitated at first, but then he approached the drummer. Placing his palm lightly against the wooden frame, feeling each strike directly, the connection between musician and dancer became electric. Not through sound, but through shared pulse. The drummer adjusted tempo, subtly watching Adam's movements, and Adam responded instantly, creating a dialogue of rhythm without a single audible cue. The room fell silent in awe. Sarah stood in the corner, remembering hospital walls, sterile and cold. Remembering the sentence, "Your son will never hear your voice." And she felt a strange gratitude, because if Adam had heard normally, perhaps he would have never discovered this language of vibration. Perhaps he would have blended into ordinary rhythms instead of carving his own unique translation opportunities. Grew larger, a National Arts Foundation invited Adam to perform in a televised showcase featuring diverse talents. The stage was enormous, cameras everywhere, bright lights, intense schedules. Sarah worried about exhaustion, about expectations crushing his childhood, but Adam remained joyful, focused. Before going on stage, he signed to her, "Do not worry, I am not alone. I feel the ground, and that ground never lies." When the performance began, millions watched from home, unaware that the boy dancing so fiercely could not hear the roaring crowd. His feet struck the floor with precision, each movement sharp, then soft, then explosive, perfectly aligned with deep, resonant bass that shook the studio. Even judges known for harsh criticism were speechless. One judge, a veteran musician, admitted on live television that Adam had taught him something profound, that music was not owned by ears alone, but by every cell willing to listen through sensation. After the broadcast, messages arrived from parents of deaf children around the world, thanking Sarah for showing possibility, for showing that limitation can transform into artistry. She responded to as many as she could, encouraging them not to chase normal, but to chase strength in uniqueness. Adam, meanwhile, remained humble, more interested in experimenting with new textures than reading praise. He began exploring different surfaces, dancing on sand, on metal platforms, on hollow wooden boxes, discovering how each material carried vibration differently. He described through signs how metal felt sharp and quick, while wood felt warm and rounded. His perception was scientific, intuitive, almost architectural. Daniel often joked that Adam did not just dance on stages, he studied them like instruments. At age 12, Adam was invited to collaborate with a contemporary composer who wanted to design music specifically for tactile experience. Instead of melody, the composer focused on layered bass frequencies, creating waves that could be felt distinctly. At various body points, Adam tested each piece, standing still, eyes closed, mapping vibration patterns across his chest, back, legs. He then choreographed movements corresponding to each layer, translating low rumbling waves into grounded steps, and higher pulses into swift spins. The premiere of this collaboration drew critics from major cities, and what they witnessed was unlike anything traditional performance offered. It was not about spectacle, but about sensation, about redefining how art communicates. After the final bow, as the floor vibrated under thunderous applause, Adam looked toward his mother again, and though he could not hear the ovation, he felt its power traveling upward through his bones. Sarah realized something unexpected. That night she no longer feared his future. She once imagined a world closing doors on him, but now she saw doors opening not because people pitied him, but because they respected him. His deafness had not been erased. It had become integrated into his identity, fueling innovation, shaping perspective. And then one quiet evening, after months of touring, Adam sat beside Sarah on their living room floor, placing her hand against the speaker as music played softly. He signed something that made her breath catch. He signed, "I do not need to hear the world to understand it. I feel it differently, and that is enough." And in that moment she understood fully that the miracle she once searched for in doctors' offices had already unfolded in front of her, not in restored hearing, but in restored belief, not in sound, but in strength. The letter arrived on an ordinary morning, folded neatly inside a white envelope with a National Arts Academy seal. Sarah almost ignored it, thinking it was another invitation, another request, another interview. But when she opened it, her hands began to shake. Adam had been selected to headline an international performance festival, a stage shared by world-class musicians, composers, and dancers from different countries, artists who had trained their entire lives for such recognition. She looked at her son sitting cross-legged on the floor, sketching his movement ideas in a notebook. And for a moment, she could not speak. Years ago, she had held that same boy in a hospital room, terrified of a future wrapped in silence, and now the world was inviting him to redefine how it understood sound. The festival was to be held in a massive open-air arena with advanced vibration technology installed beneath the stage, allowing performers to feel layered frequencies through customized panels. When Adam stepped onto the empty arena during rehearsal, he removed his shoes, as always, placing both palms flat against the floor, his eyes closed as engineers tested sub-bass waves. The ground hummed beneath him, alive, steady, powerful. He inhaled, slowly mapping the sensation like he had done since childhood, but this time something felt different, not in the vibration, but within himself. He was no longer the little boy discovering rhythm for the first time. He was an artist, shaping it the night of the performance. Tens of thousands filled the arena, lights shimmered like stars across the dark sky. Sarah stood backstage, watching technicians make final adjustments. She remembered every doubt, every whispered apology from strangers, every doctor who had spoken in careful, sympathetic tones, and she felt a quiet fire in her chest. Adam walked toward the stage, calm focus. When the first deep frequency rolled across the arena, the ground responded instantly. And he began, not with explosive movement, but with stillness, feeling each layer build beneath him, low waves grounding his feet, mid-pulses brushing against his chest, higher tremors dancing along his spine. Then slowly, deliberately, he moved each step, carving space each turn, echoing vibration patterns so precisely that even hearing musicians backstage stared in disbelief. He was not chasing music. He was conversing with it, shaping silence into motion as the performance intensified. Live percussionists joined in, their drums connected directly to vibration panels under the stage, creating a physical dialogue between rhythm and body. Adam leaped, spun, landed flawlessly, guided by sensation alone. And then, in the final segment, something unexpected happened. The music faded, gradually leaving only the natural vibrations of the crowd, shifting, breathing, moving in collective anticipation. Adam stood center stage, eyes scanning the vast audience, though he could not hear them. He felt the subtle tremor of thousands of bodies present together. And he did something no one had rehearsed. He placed his hand over his heart, then extended both hands outward, inviting the audience to feel with him. The arena fell into complete silence. No drums, no bass, no speakers, only stillness. And in that stillness, he began moving again, softly, gently, creating rhythm from memory, from internal pulse, from the beat of his own heart. The audience watched, transfixed, understanding suddenly that music was not only external, it was internal. It lived in breath, in blood, in shared human presence. When he finished, there was a pause so profound it felt sacred, and then the applause erupted, shaking the arena floor beneath him, a wave of vibration so immense that even without sound he knew he had touched them. He bowed, deeply tears forming in his eyes, not from noise but from connection backstage. Sarah could no longer hold back her tears. She had once believed she needed to protect her son from a world built on sound, but now she saw that the world was expanding. Because of him, journalists later asked her when she first realized her son was extraordinary, and she surprised herself by answering not when he danced, not when he performed, not when he gained recognition, but on the day he placed her hand over his heart and showed her that listening does not belong only to ears. Years passed, and Adam continued evolving, collaborating, teaching, inspiring, but he never allowed fame to replace curiosity. He often visited schools for deaf children, kneeling to feel vibration alongside them, showing them how floors could speak, how walls could hum, how their bodies were instruments capable of translation. He would sign to them that difference is not absence, it is another doorway, and children who once felt isolated began to see possibilities. Sarah watched him in those classrooms and understood the final piece of the miracle she had once searched for. She had expected a sudden medical breakthrough, a surgery, a device, a cure, but what she witnessed instead was transformation, not of his ears, but of perception. The world had tried to define him by what he lacked, yet he defined himself by what he could feel. And on a quiet evening, long after the festival lights had dimmed, Adam and Sarah sat together on their old living room floor, the same room where she had first played music through worn speakers years ago. He placed a hand against the floor, feeling distant city vibrations, subtle, alive. Then he took her hand and placed it beside his. She felt nothing unusual at first, only stillness, but as she focused, she sensed faint tremors beneath the surface, cars passing, footsteps somewhere in the building, life moving in patterns she had never noticed before. Adam smiled gently and signed, "You see, it was never silent. You just had to learn how to listen." And in that moment, Sarah realized the truth. Her son had not been born into silence. He had been born into a different language. One the world was only beginning to understand.